We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
This is the NBA Lockdown Insider Show on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
The regular season, it's going too fast. That's our breaking news. And this is how we know. Our run here on the NBA Insiders, these glorious winter and spring Sundays, where Amin El-Hassan, Brian Windhurst, and me, Marc Stein, we got to spend 2 or 3 hours at a time together, taking on the televised Godzillas from both the sports and entertainment world, like the NCAA tournament, taking them on with these fireside hoops chats. That run is down to its final few hours. It's our last show of the regular season. Great timing. Just when Amin, who has admittedly struggled getting the handle on this radio format, when he was finally figuring things out. That was for you, El-Hassan.
Oh, man.
I'm just playing.
You can't bring me down. You can't bring me down. You know why? Because I'm in the lovely city of Los Angeles. And while every one of you guys is wearing scarves and gloves and heavy coats, I've got a short sleeve shirt on.
Yeah, why are you the only guy on the show with a travel budget? You're always going somewhere. You're in Boston. You're in L.A. Hey. Windhurst, you and Randy Newman hanging out. Windhurst and I get nothing.
I'm going to go hit up Santa Monica after this show is over and basically celebrate the last, 7-8 week run we've had. It's been a great run.
Tell us what you're doing. What are you doing out there?
Well, I'm not at liberty to say, but I am doing early Sports Center tomorrow and Tuesday from here. But I'm also here for another top secret.
Windhurst, are you catching this? Are you? This guy's gone. He's going no comment on us.
I know what he's doing. I'm just, I'll break that news when the time is appropriate.
Oh man, you're protecting him. Unbelievable. Fine, I'm done with both of you. Let's get to tonight's table setting, what we always call the fast break. Some big news actually in the standings today, and news that we really didn't expect if you would have rewound about a week ago. The Houston Rockets, as we speak, they're on par with the Memphis Grizzlies for the number 2 seed. If Memphis loses again tonight in San Antonio, Houston has sole possession of the number 2 seed. Just what it looked like the Memphis Grizzlies were going to secure their first division title at a canter and lock up that number 2 seed. A really rough week for the Memphis Grizzlies. Pounded at home by Cleveland and Golden State, and now have to deal with the Spurs tonight. We'll be talking Grizzlies tonight for sure. We're going to check in as well with the one and only, the mercurial Metta World Peace, who makes his debut in the Italian League tomorrow night. But what he really wants is to be the next coach of St. John's. He found a way to track the former Ron Artest down by phone. We'll catch up with him later on. Of course, we're going to talk about the latest happenings with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kevin Love, that back injury it's given him issues again. And just when it's really the only thing that could take the momentum away from the Cavs, who've been the hottest team in the East, and despite what it says in the standings, have clearly supplanted Atlanta as the favorite in the East. We're going to hit on all that as the show unfolds between now and 10 Eastern. But the biggest story in the NBA this week, boys, I think we would all agree, the Oklahoma City Thunder making it official and ruling Kevin Durant out for the rest of the season. He's going to need another surgery on that troublesome right foot, Brian Windhurst.
Yeah, I mean, they knew about it for a while. They obviously announced it on Friday, news dump day, but they knew this was coming for maybe even a full week. You don't have to be a doctor. If you look at Kevin Durant and the way he's built, he's very long and very lean, and that bone in his foot is a very long and very lean bone, and it just hasn't healed. I went back at the urging of the Thunder and read a couple of studies when they brought him back last fall about this. There's actually a couple of very germane studies to elite athletes who have had Jones fractures, and the recovery in these studies is very good. These guys have recovered, and almost overwhelmingly, after they recovered in a period of 12 weeks. Now, he came back earlier than 12 weeks, I'm pretty sure. But a 12-week recovery period, a very high percentage of these guys were fine. But there is that small percentage where they need to have the bone graft. And I think the Thunder played the percentages here. I mean, they knew that the best idea for the surgery to guarantee 100% recovery was the bone graft, but that would have almost ended his season before it started. So they took the 95% bet, and because even in the study of elite athletes, not everybody has a long, narrow foot like Kevin Durant does. It worked against him, but the studies and the history say that he's going to be okay long term.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, Brian. You and I were on SportsCenter the day that news broke, and we talked about you got to kind of weigh the risk-reward of the whole matter. And for them, it's a no-brainer. I don't think people are recognizing, the absolute buzzsaw that lives in the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. But the other part of it is, and again, I might be in the minority about this, I don't think the threat of Kevin Durant leaving right now is as great as the rest of the basketball viewing public, apparently.
I actually think, in a weird way, this helps the Thunder. Okay, it ends the season. It dramatically reduces what they can accomplish this year, lowers their ceiling. Okay, period. They understand that. They come to that conclusion. They realize that. New paragraph. If Kevin Durant is focusing on his recovery and getting back from this surgery, then this summer is not going to be all about what he's going to do in the future. I think as you have probably felt like, that if all things were normal, you'd have to bring Durant into a room, have a face-to-face meeting with him and say, Kevin, what are you going to do for your future? Now, I think Kevin has got to worry about his recovery and just to make sure that he's back to be in position to get another max contract. He's got to focus on his health more than focusing on his future. And I think that really, really buys the Thunder a summer of angst, because they can just easily point to what the number 1 priority is and should be.
100%.
That would be the optimistic view. I suppose it could play out that way. You can rest assured the line of teams trying to steal Kevin Durant away, that's not going to get any shorter. He's going to come back from this. Everything I've heard is this bone graft surgery is not something that NBA people consider risky. So the assumption is he is going to make it back now that he's really stepping away for the long term. But, man, if it does work out the way Brian just laid out there, that would be an absolute, the all-time blessing in disguise. But I'm sure that has to strike OKC fans as optimistic, because they had a great trade deadline, and they would have the deepest team they've ever had if Durant and Ibaka were healthy.
But they're going to have that team next year.
Neither one.
They're going to have that team next year too.
Yep, and I think that's the main thing. I think, going back to what I was saying, I don't think Durant would be inclined to leave. Is if you're Oklahoma City, say, look, when we've been healthy, we're consistently a 55-plus win team, almost 60-win team. We're consistently going deeper into the playoffs, conference finals, or later, if we're not having injury issues. So this idea that we got to push the red button because we had our first bad year because a bunch of guys got hurt, it's just silly. It's too reactionary to something that's it's illogical.
Eastern Conference, 2-team conference at this point, 3-team conference. We got to give the Chicago Bulls some respect as they inch back towards something resembling full strength. They've got Jimmy Butler back. They're going to get Derrick Rose back. 3-team conference. How many teams can win the East?
Well, first of all, before I answer that question, Mark, let me take a big gulp of this energy drink. All right. Eastern Conference playoff talk. Let's get excited. All right. Now, this is a 2-team conference, Mark. It's the Cavs. It's the Hawks. And then there's everybody else. And everybody else is basically hoping for a first-round win and, a good show in the second round. The Chicago Bulls, defensively, they haven't been what we've come to expect of them over the last few years. And really, that's the identity of this team. Because if they're not doing it on the defensive end, they just don't have the firepower to consistently outscore and outgun opponents. And so again, they'll win their first round matchup, and then they'll get in the second round. They'll have to play probably the Cavs if things hold as far as the seedings go. Same thing, Toronto, Washington. They're going to have to face each other in the first round. One of them's got to go, and then whatever the winner pops out of there has got to face the Atlanta Hawks. I just don't think they're disciplined enough defensively or, again, gifted enough offensively to really make a difference against that team as well. Honestly, I'm more intrigued with what's happening at the bottom of the playoff picture. I really am.
The 6 through 11 right now, you have a reality show. What's going on there? The Miami Heat is so banged up. Obviously, they already got McRoberts and Bosch out for the year. Hassan Whiteside had a freak injury, slicing his hand open on the rim earlier this week. He's been out. Chris Anderson in the same game hurt his ankle. He's been out. Udonis Haslem got banged up tonight. So tonight, right now, the Heat playing against the Pistons are playing a 2-3 zone with Mario Chalmers and James Ennis playing some of the big man spots, okay? The Brooklyn Nets, the less they play Darren Williams, the better they play. And they could, on one night, have a horrible loss, and the next night beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're the most unpredictable team in the league. You have no idea what's going to happen night in and night out with them. It's insane. They're better on the road than they are at home. The Al Jefferson is basically playing on one leg in Charlotte, and they've gone so far back. Indiana has absolutely bottomed out. We thought they would be a 6 or 7 seed. They have completely collapsed. Paul George has taken a look at what's happened to Kevin Durant and said, I'm not going to come back and chance this injury. Forget that. Just like Kevin Durant watched Paul George get hurt last summer, saw him break his leg in Vegas and said, I'm not playing again. Forget that. The Bucks have been one of the worst teams in the East for the last month, but they're still sitting there in 6th because behind them is a mash unit. It's unbelievable, the action or lack of action or injuries that's going on, and all the while the Hawks are resting all 5 of their starters. The Cavs are cruising home into the number 2 seed. The difference between being East and West is just unbelievable as you look what's going on in the West for that last spot and compared to what's going on out East.
Catch the fever. Eastern Conference playoff basketball.
Or drink from the energy tap that Amin El Hassan drank from before we started this Eastern Conference playoff preview. I'm gonna do to Windhurst what he just did to me slyly in the last segment, which I hate. Your Dallas Mavericks. So your Cavaliers, Windhurst, are they the favorite in the East, even though Atlanta still has this nice 8-game cushion? Well, let's just fast forward to the conference finals since you give none of these other teams any hope. Who's going to win? Atlanta has home court advantage, but everybody says, oh, they don't have a go-to guy. They don't have a clear-cut star. You can't win in the playoffs that way.
I've blocked off my first 2 weeks of May to go back and forth between Cleveland and Chicago because I think that could be a very compelling series. So I'm not giving the Cavs the conference finals. If you watch the Cavs play against Memphis on Wednesday, that was the Cavs at full power. And that was also the Cavs' 14th win their last 15 games against the Western Conference, which is as strong as a vote of confidence as you can give results based. Today, even though it was an ugly game, neither team scored in the last 4 minutes. I'm going to say that again. Neither team scored a point in the last 4 minutes. The Cavs won by 1. That was their 16th consecutive home victory. So you look at those two facts, 16 in a row at home, 14-1 down the stretch against the Western Conference. It's a very compelling argument as to why they are where they are. Although, also today, they played terrible, ineffective, total isolation basketball down the stretch. This team still doesn't know how to get late-game baskets under pressure, which is why I do think that when they get into a playoff setting, there's going to be a learning curve for them. The question is whether the competition is going to be stiff enough that's going to cost them a series maybe before they get to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, by the way, our Tom Haberstroh reports that because of injuries, Henry Walker is now playing center against Andre Drummond in that Heat Pistons game.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that Luol Deng was out with a knee injury. He got hurt mid-game with a knee injury. And I also think Michael Beasley is out with an injury.
Yes.
Honestly, Alonzo Mourning may finish this game. They may sign him. Or actually, Juwan Howard's on the bench, right? They could just slip him a uniform and put him right in the game. And That's how desperate it is. And the Heat are still 7th place. And by the way, they're winning this game over Detroit. Last I checked. I'd like to point that out as well.
You know why they're still in 7th?
So it is completely
because they're a no excuses team. I heard Spo say that once, I think.
You know what though? I know that that's cheesy, but there's something in that. There's something in that. It may be 85% cheese, but there's something in that.
Nerlens Noel of the Philadelphia 76ers, kind enough to be with us. Nerlens, thanks so much for joining us. Great to have you with us. A tough one tonight. Narrow loss in Cleveland, but you're coming off a 30-14 game this weekend. You've had some really good production since the All-Star break. What's kind of clicked for you and changed for you since the All-Star break in your game? What has been working for you personally?
I just came with a new approach. I've really, tried to step in the leadership role for this team and, just doing what I can, help this team continue to progress and continue to win, whether it's steals, points, blocks, rebounds, just whatever has to be done.
And this Rookie of the Year race, I'm sure you're aware of it. All the talk has been Wiggins. You've kind of wedged yourself in there. We've got Mirotic in Chicago doing the same. What chances do you give yourself of winning a Rookie of the Year trophy and sneaking in at the wire and swiping that trophy away from Andrew Wiggins?
I think I give myself, the best chance of, being able to do everything on the court. I try to assert myself on the court, especially on the defensive end. Again, my team going to be in the anchor of that and making sure, I'm cleaning up on the glass and, doing other little things that are, going to help me.
Nerlens, before I ask you about yourself, I want to ask you, you had the happenstance of being in Cleveland, I think, last night when your Kentucky Wildcats played that barn burner with Notre Dame. Did you get to go to the game? And if you did, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I was there. It was an intense game. It was very close the whole game. And, I thought Notre Dame, did bring it. They hit tough shots. They got in the lanes and, made the right passes. And I think, we were a little cold, but I think, when we needed plays, they were made. And, Andrew and Aaron hit tough shots, Tyler with that late three. So I enjoyed the game a lot. And, I'm expecting a lot, next weekend.
Like you were a high draft pick as a big man coming out of there, there's a couple of really talented big men playing for Coach Cal right now. Give me your opinion of those guys, Willie Cauley-Stein and Karl Anthony Towns, and what you see. I think they're both going to be peers of yours in the NBA next year. What do you see from those guys going forward?
I definitely see a lot from them guys. Willie's, a very active big man that, can catch lobs and, do the things that you want, run the floor. And, Karl Towns, he's real dominant, especially, seeing him for the first time last night. He scored at will, for a team that needed it when other guys were struggling. So, I think he's going to be great at this level and as they continue to grow.
There's a lot of talk about your former coach, John Calipari, maybe coming to the NBA in the near future. How do you think he would fare if he does decide to leave Kentucky and come back to the NBA?
I think John Calipari, he's such a successful coach, and he knows how to, handle a lot of guys. And, regardless of if he does or not, I'm sure I'm not, really too sold on it. But, whether if he does or not, I think he'll be successful wherever he's at, as long as he's put in the right situation. But, I like him right where he's at Kentucky, really, changing people's lives. Because, without him, I'm not sure I'd be where I am, with the guidance that he gave me all my time at Kentucky. It really meant a lot to me.
Nerlens Noel of the Philadelphia 76ers joining us via the Subway Fresh Take hotline since the All-Star break, averaging 13.9 points, 10.3 rebounds, and 2.7 blocks per game for the Sixers. I saw you guys recently playing in Oklahoma City and just struck by how hard you guys are playing. It's a young team. Wins have been few and far between. I'm sure it's been a big adjustment for you coming from a super successful college program to this kind of rebuilding situation you find yourself in with Philadelphia. When you assess this season and kind of grade it, how will you grade this season? What did you want to get achieved knowing that wins were going to be hard to come by for the Sixers?
I graded it as an overall success. We came in wanted to progress and get better. As individuals and as a team. Especially with as many moving pieces that we had. I thought we did a great job of just sticking together through it all and every time we stepped out on the court, we went to fight and, we fought hard. Just like tonight, I think we did a great job on the defensive end. As it's been the whole year, we've never backed down, and, I think that's a success overall.
And health-wise, you feel pretty good. Obviously, your first year coming in was a rough one. How do you feel overall health-wise?
I feel great, with our great training staff and, being able to, play as many games as I did. I had no doubt that I'd, be able to stay healthy through the duration of the year.
Well, good luck in the Rookie of the Year race because we do think it's back on. Good luck to your Wildcats in the NCAA tournament. Gut feel, they going to win? They going to win it all?
Yeah, I got the Cavs winning it all.
Gut feel, do we see John Calipari in the NBA next season?
My gut feel probably not, but we'll see.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Earlier tonight, via the Subway Fresh Take hotline, had the opportunity to dial all the way out to Italy to connect with the one and only Metta World Peace in the news, not only because he has signed with a team in Italy and will make his debut tomorrow night, but because what he really wants is the St. John's head coaching job. That's right. Metta World Peace, the former Ron Artest, wants to take over as head coach at his alma mater, St. John's. A lot of skepticism when you hear that off the bat. So I had to ask Metta World Peace himself, why do you think you're ready to make that jump straight from playing to head coaching at the college level?
Yeah, I think it works. I think it works because I've been coaching. I have experience. That's the main thing, is that I'm not jumping into this, and not to put anybody else down, because I really enjoy a lot of the coaches that I see coaching now. But I have a championship this year, right? It's high school, but I have a start. So I coach the girls' team at Palisades. I coach the boys' team at Palisades. I run practices. I have a men's team in L.A. The only reason I left was because I wanted to come to Italy to learn a little bit more, and I wanted to play basketball. And I've been coaching last year also. So not only that it's in my blood, to coach, I want to coach, and challenge of New York City. When I went to St. John's from LaSalle Academy, I knew the challenges when everybody went to other schools because they didn't want the pressure of New York. That's what I thrive on. I went back to the Knicks, and I could have went to the Spurs and Dallas and OKC, but I went to New York. Why? Because the pressure, and that's what I want. So I only have one goal. My goal would be to help St. John's bring a NCAA title. The Sweet 16 that we was at, or the Elite Eight, that's not a success. That's a failure. Any Final Fours, those are failures. New York should not be proud of that. And it will be a failure if I was to get the job and not bring an NCAA title to New York. That is my only goal. That is the only reason that I would want to coach St. John's.
So the word I got today is that you have formally let St. John's know of your interest. Any sort of response from the school yet? What are they saying about your interest in the job?
Well, what happened was when I saw that Coach Lavin was not with St. John's no more, I didn't realize that he got fired. So I called Coach Lavin. I told him, congratulations. You had a great career at St. John's, and I really appreciate what you did for the city, of New York City, and for the school. And then, when I found out that he got fired from St. John's, I didn't reach out to anybody at the school for a day. And then I finally reached out to some guys I knew at the school and some guys I worked with before, and I was like, hey, can y'all put me in the hat to be a coach at St. John's? This is not something that I'm not prepared for. It's not something that I'm afraid of. And I have one goal in mind, which is a championship. So I'm totally ready for a position like this. if it was to happen, and it's the only thing that I would stop my pro career for, is the St. John's job. I just came from China, in Italy, and, we had a few opportunities to play back in the NBA again, or Italy or whatever, overseas. But the St. John's job is a job that I would, start my NBA career for, or my professional career for, and coach.
What sort of feedback have you gotten so far from the school? Have they said anything to you yet about your interest?
Not yet, because it's only been like a day or two. And for the most part, I'm trying to go about it the right way. And I never, ever applied, for a head coaching job. I wanted to coach, head coach in NBA or head coach in college. I'm not afraid of the task. I only have one goal. But now my agent, David Bauman, is reaching out formally to make sure we do this the right way. And I would absolutely be on the next sip smoking to please.
The one and only Metta World Peace, formerly Ron Artest, joining us here on the NBA Insiders via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. You've had what I think is fair to say a colorful career in the NBA, to put it mildly. I think even you would understand there's going to be some skepticism about how serious would he really be about coaching. What's your response to people who would raise those kind of questions?
Well, coming from you, Marc, I appreciate it, and I kind of respect your judgment. People who just have an opinion about things that happened in the past, if we talk about basketball intelligence, you're talking to one of the best. If you're talking about my past, then you're talking to somebody who actually lived and was a part of his past. That's obvious. And you can't take away the past. It's impossible. If I could erase some things, I would. I would go on Google and actually erase the brawl and erase things that I've done in my past. But I can't. And I'm not afraid to address anything, ever. I'm also not afraid to focus, lock in, and if I did have the opportunity to coach, I would be in a zone, totally focused on the task. As you can see in my career, I'm in great shape. I'm very disciplined. If you look at my body now, at 35 years old, I can still play professional basketball. I can start on basically any team that LeBron James is not on, and Kevin Durant and Carmelo Anthony. Any team in the NBA I can start on. Very disciplined. I eat right. And, I'm a professional. And I've been through a lot. I played for Carlisle. I've seen these practices. I played for Mike Brown. I've seen his defensive schemes. I played for Coach Mancini. He's with the Spurs. I played for, Phil Jackson, Fran Fraschilla. I have so much great teaching, and I'm one of the best defensive players to ever play the game, one away on the perimeter. I had to execute in Game 7s. I've been on the floor where I watched Kobe Bryant and Powell play, and I had to be a role player. I've been a role player. I've been on teams where I averaged 25 points a game in Indiana. I've been a leader on teams. I've been a role player. So this is a job that I'm totally, capable of doing. You can't question that.
Metta World Peace joining us here via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, live from Italy, where he has just signed with Pallacanestro Cantu. You're in Cantu. I know I got that part right.
Yes.
Let's say nothing comes of this interest with St. John's. You started this season in China. What's the state of your playing career? I know you just got to Italy. What are you hoping to achieve with this stint in Italy?
This is great. I'm learning a lot because the last couple of years that I played basketball, I wanted to get back to body movement and ball movement. I'm not ready to stop playing. I'm in great shape, so I feel no need for me to stop playing. So when I came to Europe, it was just to get that team chemistry type of concept back of basketball. I love to play the game, and totally wasn't about the money. I made enough money in China where I didn't really have to come back to Italy. I just wanted to play basketball, and I wanted to learn more. I'm looking forward to playing against other coaches in the Italian league because it's one of the best leagues in the world. After USA and NBA and Spain is pretty good, but the Italian league is a very, very well-coached league. A lot of great strategies, and I go back. I learn a little bit, stay in shape, and I can play in the NBA if I wanted to. I'm not washed up yet. Last year I was with the Knicks. I had some good games. I just didn't play because of other circumstances. So, I'm still ready for action, any type of action.
We will now be joined by the general manager of the Houston Rockets. Up and down week for the Rockets. On one hand, they get some bad news. They lose Patrick Beverley, but mostly good news. Dwight Howard is back, and when you look at the standings, the Houston Rockets are now the number 2 seed in the West. Daryl Morey, their GM, joins us now. Mr. Morey, quite a comeback, quite a move up the ladder from your team, especially without your point guard. What are you seeing from this group? To what do you attribute kind of the resilience and success we've seen out of this team through a lot of injuries, really?
Thanks for having me on. This is a murderer's row of hosts. This is impressive. You guys all get together like this all the time, or this is pretty impressive. So
we'll go easy. We'll go easy on you though.
Okay, good. In terms of how we've managed through this, to your point, we've got a bit of a next man up mentality. We've had the most injuries to starters of any team, any playoff team. Obviously, James Harden, his MVP campaign has kept us afloat. We've had some key guys step up acquisition-wise, and Brewer and Josh Smith. Prigioni came in, had a good game today. But I think one area that hasn't been talked about enough is Coach McHale. I mean, he's got these guys prepared every night, weathered these injuries, mixed and matched, so many different lineups and rotations, and it was very disappointing to see him ranked so low in the ESPN rankings that came out this week.
Well, I'm only responsible for the ESPN Power Rankings, so on that score, you cannot complain to me. Power Rankings complaints, I'll take them all from you. But you're right. Kevin McHale's had a very good season here. Your team, 50 wins after 73 games, given the injuries you've had. I'm sure you guys are pretty happy. On the Patrick Beverley front, what kind of hope are you clinging to that he could still come back this season? Where do things stand with your point guard?
Still evaluating. It looks like we're going to come to a decision tomorrow on whether he's going to have surgery now or later, and that'll change the dynamics of it. It looks like the injury will require surgery at some point, and there are different factors and second opinions that we're gathering to sort of work with Pat and then make the right decision there. And we will see how that comes down tomorrow.
If Mr. Beverley isn't able to return, what does that do for the ceiling of your team? Obviously, you've got Dwight back now. You've got James playing the game of the basketball of his life. What does that do for your ceiling if you can't get Beverley back?
We think we can win the title, with or without Beverley. Obviously, it gets more challenging without Beverley. He's the key to our ability to guard a lot of these very good point guards in the West. But we feel like with a full-strength Dwight Howard, and it looks like we may have that, full-strength James Harden, which we've had all season. Looks like we're going to get Terrence Jones and Donatas Motiunas back in time for the playoffs with hopefully a few games to get those guys tuned up. And we feel very good. We won't go in as the favorite. I think Golden State, deservedly so, gets to be called the favorite. They've had a very historic season. I think the Golden State training staff hasn't been talked about enough this year. They've that team's been healthy and really that showcased everyone in Golden State, and Coach Kerr's done a great job. So we won't go in as the favorite, but we do feel like we can beat anybody in a 7-game series, and we're pretty excited to get going with the playoffs.
Daryl, I know that you weren't happy with Coach McHale's ranking, but you did give him a contract extension earlier this year, so I'm sure he feels appreciated where it really matters. But you've been very outspoken about James's candidacy for MVP. You don't have to sell it to me. I've been out there publicly. I do believe he is the MVP this year, although I don't think he's going to win it. But what have you seen the overall maturation of his game? I've seen a guy who competes dramatically more on the defensive end, but I also see a difference in a leadership standpoint, and I really sort of saw it developing. He impressed me in Las Vegas last summer during the training camp of Team USA, and I feel like that carried over. But what have you seen as he's developed more his overall skill and his overall game to get to this level?
I think every year he adds something new, and that's what, and every year we go, what else can he add? And this year was no different. This off season he said, I want to become more of a leader of the team. He had three things: become a more leader of the team, improve on the defensive end, and improve his ability to attack the basket with his right hand. And he worked on all those things, and frankly, really has aced all three, which is really surprising. I think generally, to your point on ceiling before, guys sometimes find a ceiling. We're still finding James Harden's ceiling, which is pretty exciting for myself, for Houston Rockets fans, for everybody. But on the USA basketball, he was the leader of that team. Coach Krzyzewski put it on him early and has really stepped up the whole year. To keep blocking the game today to get us into second, to ice that game and put us into second position here with us in Memphis primarily, sort of duking it out for that spot right now.
Hey, Daryl, quick question for you. So the defense improvement has been kind of the big story for you guys this year. Obviously, James has been incredible, but the team defense as a whole, other than the personnel moves that you made, adding a guy like Corey Brewer and then Josh Smith, what can you point to that's been the biggest reason behind this?
Yeah, I really point to Coach McHale and J.B. Bickerstaff. When the season ended, we knew last year we were about middle of the pack in defense. That's not going to cut it if you want to be a championship contender. We wanted to be top five. Right now we sit top five. We interviewed we lost Coach Kelvin Sampson, the University of Houston. Coach McHale interviewed some candidates for that spot, and after interviewing a few, said, you know what? There's nobody better than J.B. Bickerstaff. I'm gonna put this on him. We're gonna work together. We're gonna make a better defense. Coach Bickerstaff studied the teams in the league, studied what he wanted to do, studied our personnel. We worked together with McHale and Bickerstaff on the types of acquisitions we'd need to make that improvement, and it's been a real harmony as we with Dwight out for more than half the season. For us to be top five is really impressive. I think we were 1 or 2 when Dwight went out, and we feel like we can be the top defensive team, in the playoffs once we get Dwight back to playing 30 to 40 minutes a night.
Daryl, one of the big criticisms of your team is that, and that's the euphemism people use when they're really expressing their own opinion. So this is my opinion.
I'm ready. I'd like to admit it though. Like most hosts won't say it, so I appreciate that.
They say people are saying. That's what they
just say I think, and I won't be mad. I don't mind criticism.
When you look at Harden's game, I believe a lot of fans don't like that. A lot of his ability or scoring ability is based on his ability to get to the line and convert from there. A lot of fans don't like that. I like it. I think it's a skill. I don't think it's something that anyone can do. He's absolutely talented and gifted at it. But when it comes to the playoffs, we've seen year in and year out that refs tend to be a little less giving with the whistle. How concerned are you of that so much of your offense is based on his ability to get the line, or at least that threat?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I think it's been something that's brought up, and I've been wanting to address it in that, James Harden has the ability to beat his man better than anyone in the league right now. That's probably the most important skill for an offensive player. You don't really have anything until someone can beat his man or someone can come out of double team in the NBA. Everything else is just switch in and forcing things. But if you've got that, so he has the unique ability that every team's looking for. The idea that he relies on the refs is just the idea that everyone relies on the refs. If you can beat your man to the hoop, and they're gonna hammer you before you shoot it, that's got to be called a foul. Your point on the refs tightening up in the playoffs, that's not something we're concerned about. His ability to beat his man is still unique, still better than most of our competitors in the West, and at the end of the day, he's also one of the best finishers in the league. So if they're not going to call the foul, then, he's going to beat his man and either create collapse the paint and kick it out to our shooters or other playmakers, or he's going to finish it. So he's still, regardless of, whether or not the referees are calling the game correctly or not, his ability is going to carry us through.
All right. He sounds like you're taking shots at the refs now, whether they're going to call it correctly or not.
No, they generally have done actually a pretty good job this year. We've had some prominent, counter examples, but it's been pretty good this year.
Our last few moments on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline with Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey. So Dwight obviously has the minutes restriction as we speak, 16 minutes a game, up to the 20s. How confident are you that come playoff time you can play him in the 30s and he will be able to take something closer to a full shift?
Right. I mean, obviously no one knows for sure. That's why we're bringing him back slowly. But so far, 3 games in, he's been solid. There's no back-to-backs in the playoffs. Back-to-backs might be something that might be challenging for him as he's initially back here, but long term we feel very good about it, and through the playoffs we feel good about it. And obviously, we're a different team with him. We're as I mentioned, we feel like we can be the top defense in the playoffs with him anchoring it.
We really appreciate you making a few minutes for us here on a Sunday night. Daryl Morey, general manager of the Houston Rockets. Good luck in the playoffs. We will catch up with you soon, and I hope when you and Charles Barkley cross paths here in the postseason that everything goes nice and smooth and warmly.
We go way back.
Big happenings in the Western Conference playoff ladder tonight. We talked about it at the start of the show. What we talked about has come to fruition. The Memphis Grizzlies lost the third leg of a killer stretch of schedule, routed at home by Cleveland Wednesday night, routed at home Friday night by Golden State, losing again by double digits in San Antonio tonight. Those 3 straight losses combined with what the Houston Rockets are doing, and suddenly the Memphis Grizzlies, who seemed like a shoo-in for at least the number 2 seed in the West, have now slipped to number 3. They were chasing the first division title in franchise history. That now could be out of reach if they don't turn things around quickly. The Houston Rockets played a long, long time without Dwight Howard, and this is the crux of James Harden's MVP case, that James Harden kept these guys in range to move all the way up to number 2. Now Dwight's back only in limited doses, and they are the number 2 seed in the West as we move into the final 2+ weeks of the season. Amin El-Hassan, how did this happen?
Wow. Plenty of reasons. Number one, I think all the midseason additions that they made, they came in really handy. When you want to talk about Corey Brewer, when you want to talk about Josh Smith, who's been up and down, but as given the injuries that they've had up front, he's been invaluable, I would say. And obviously the recent addition now of Prigioni with Beverly's injury gives them another kind of solid contributor. But I think we've got to give a lot of credit to the Rockets' defense. The defensive overhaul has really allowed them to stay in the conversation. And then obviously James Harden has been incredible. He's been an incredible offensive dynamo, and he's carried them offensively.
Yeah, James Harden's my pick for MVP. I've been in that camp. I've been in that camp for several weeks now. I know it's going to be a wasted vote because I know Curry's going to win.
As he should.
Westbrook has impressed me a lot. But if you spend any time watching the Rockets and you see what this guy does, he's competing at both ends. Today, late in the game, the Wizards were trying to mount a comeback, and he got his backside back down the court and got out and blocked a three-pointer by Bradley Beal in a 2-possession game. I just feel like he's really worked a lot harder on defense. He does play a bit of a junk game offensively where he dupes you into fouls, but he's a master at it. And I think we've paid so much attention to the Thunder's injuries, we haven't realized that the Rockets have been just as banged up. The Rockets and the Pelicans are two teams that are ridiculously banged up that nationally we don't pay attention to. So the fact that they are in the 2 seed, yes, they've played good defense, but they're still ranked in the middle of the pack. They have they have a bunch of system players playing within a system, and they have, in my opinion, the most valuable player. And so I still do not see them as a team that can win the West, especially with how banged up they are. But I extraordinarily admire what James Harden has done this year, and I give him the highest compliment by planning it to vote for him for MVP.
Yeah, you guys both make it sound clear-cut. You're saying it's Harden. I mean, scoffing at you with Curry. It's not clear-cut. I mean, these guys are really, really close. It's painful to have to vote one over the other because I don't know that either one is going to get this kind of great opportunity to win the MVP award because LeBron and Durant, who are at the forefront of this conversation every year because of bizarre circumstances on both sides, Durant obviously didn't factor in the race at all. LeBron is going to finish 3rd or 4th, which is crazy, but it's going to happen this year because of Cleveland's slow start and basically being 19-20 halfway through the season. You have to think it's an aberration, and we know Anthony Davis is going to be at the forefront of this race for years to come. So this is a huge opportunity for Curry or Harden. Who knows? This might be the only chance either one has to grab it for the foreseeable future, and it's tough to pick between them. I'm leaning towards Curry. It's a very slim margin. But the bigger deal to me, far bigger than MVP, is just, again, the fact that Golden State, for weeks, we've been talking in anticipation of what a horrible reward it's going to be for this best-ever Golden State team to have to play Oklahoma City. But the Thunder aren't whole. And you could say that about a lot of teams in the West. A lot of teams in the West aren't whole. Golden State is not only the best team in the West, they're the healthiest.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's what, earlier when we were talking about MVPs, a lot earlier, I wanted to say the MVP of the league really is health. The team that's going to end up winning the entire thing is going to be a team that's probably been the healthiest, whether it's the Cavs, who other than obviously the Kevin Love lingering back issues and LeBron's 2-week break in the middle, they've been fairly healthy. And the Golden State Warriors, that's the other team that's kind of at the top of everybody's list to win it all.
Guess who else is healthy?
The San Antonio Spurs now.
That's right. 13-3 after their last 16 after their win tonight against a tough portion of schedule. Kawhi Leonard, when he got healthy, they got healthy, which is why, I mean, we could spend the time trying to break down who's going to get what seed. But as we sit here today, in late March, last week of March, I think it's going to be Warriors Spurs in the conference finals. And there's a lot of twists and turns and bits of luck that have to get there. And I think that could be a potentially epic series. And I think because right now, at least, with what you can see on the spectrum, those are the two healthiest teams in the West at the moment.
Have we conceded that Houston's going to hold on to the 2 seed here? Do we think Memphis is going to keep sliding? What do you guys feel?
Well, San Antonio and Golden State conference finals. That's all I have.
That's all you got.
That's what I got.
I mean, it's hard to argue. I mean, Memphis could right itself and get the number 2 seed back. It's certainly not, they're certainly not finished. They've got 8 games to go. Houston has 9 games to go, and Houston won't have Patrick Beverley. So it's not like the season is lost for the Memphis Grizzlies. But, they really, I think, had a fair bit of momentum themselves, and the Jeff Green trade looked like such a good move, and it looked like a final piece addition. And when you watch these guys, they're maybe splintering is too strong a word, but just none of their top players have been trending upward since the All-Star break. It's not just Mike Conley. It's not just Courtney Lee. I mean, Zebo and Marc Gasol too. Marc Gasol's numbers since the All-Star break are pretty ordinary.
Right.
And he that's unexpected when his free agency this summer is going to be so anticipated. So something's missing there.
I agree with you, but they've just played the hardest week of schedule they're going to have all year. Their schedule, they got a 4-game homestand. Next Sunday at this time, Memphis could be back in the 2 seed. It could be a short-term thing. But I agree, they've got to play better than they've been playing.
And San Antonio's only three games back now. 3 games back of a 3 seed. Imagine that.
I got to go with what Mr. Windhurst said. If you have to pick a Final Four in the NBA right now, it's Final Four time in the college game. If you had to pick a Final Four right now, I think you'd have to say Hawks, Cavs, Warriors, Spurs.
Five of the next 6 games for the Rockets are on the road. The next 4 are for Memphis are at home. Memphis will be in the 2 seed within 10 days. They'll be back there where they need to be.
This is Marc Stein from your NBA Lockdown Insiders. Thanks for listening. You can find Brian Windhurst, Amin El-Hassan, and I most Sunday evenings on ESPN Radio. And don't forget to listen to George Sedano and Amin all week on the NBA Lockdown podcast at ESPN.com's Pod Center.